Warning, the following program has been rated T for truth.
You can't handle the truth!
Oh, we think you can. Welcome to the Naked Truth Report with your host, truth warrior and mythbuster Kathleen Wells. The place where we distinguish fact from fiction, where data is used to drive points home, and where Kathleen takes the position that Democrats and black politicians have destroyed black America. Welcome to the Naked Truth Report. Now, your host, Kathleen Wells.
Hi, everyone. Guess what? It's me, Kathleen Wells, host of the Naked Truth Report. And I'm sitting here with my guest, Ian Henderson, who I met at the National Association of Scholars. Yeah, that was a wonderful event. In fact, I want to talk about it a little bit more. In fact, I'm going to have Ian talk about it. Hi, Ian. Hi, Ian.
Hi, how you doing? Glad to be here. Thanks again for having me on.
Yeah, you look a little awkward sitting there. We're trying to, we're trying to get the camera thing right, but I'm gonna have,
but we're working it out.
We're working it out. I'm gonna have Kevin come in and help me with the camera because the live stream, we don't have the camera right on the live stream. I don't know why. Maybe we have the wrong. I don't know what's going on with the live stream, but I'm gonna have someone work. I'm gonna have Kevin, my engineer. I see he's talking to Jeff. I'm gonna have him work on that. But we're okay with the Facebook Live.
Perfect.
Okay, the Facebook Live is fine. So anyway, I met Ian Henderson at the National Association of Scholars 2 Saturdays ago, and it was a wonderful event. We talked about, basically, we listened to academicians, scholars talk about how the universities and colleges are basically indoctrinating the students with propaganda, with a liberal ideology.
It was quite an anomaly, actually, seeing a bunch of academics that weren't leftists. Just a bunch of very, very solidly conservative or moderate academics that were willing to have an honest conversation about policies and talk about subjects that were possibly controversial, but talk about it in a solid, straightforward manner that was well researched and articulate manner. Yeah.
But basically what they were saying is that students are being indoctrinated to embrace socialism. They're not learning. So that was the gist of it. Mm-hmm. They were being indoctrinated to embrace, in other words, students are now like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah.
She represents what young kids are getting now, that kind of thinking, that kind of, they think that's the right way to think.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's no longer education. It's indoctrination. You're going into college expecting to learn all these great things, and all they're teaching you is how to be an activist in most of the social sciences and liberal arts.
A social
areas.
Justice warrior.
Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, one of the things that, and Ian actually, he's an alumni of UCLA. So we have that in common. Yeah. Go Bruins. And he sent me some articles. He's a political consultant and an opinion writer for, what is the name of the?
So American Greatness is one of them. And I've also been published in the Epic Times.
Epic Times and American Greatness. Yeah. Epic Times is fantastic. Yeah. So, and one of the articles that he wrote, he's well versed, well informed, very, how do I want to say, he knows what he's talking about when it comes to immigration. And that's why he's able to write articles on it. So one of the articles is what America can learn from Japan's immigration system. And the other one is the Democratic Party is killing itself. That's a good one I read. And there's a third one is why building the wall is the humane thing to do. But before we get specifically to him discussing these articles, there's something that I want to read to my listeners. So Dr. Claude Anderson, everyone knows that Dr. Claude Anderson is my mentor. Right. He's my mentor. That's how I learned about you. You folks know, my truth warriors know that I used to be a Democrat. I voted for Obama one time. And in fact, when I had my show at KCAA, on KCAA, AM 1050, I think it is, KCAA, I was a Democrat. In fact, they would even re-air my show on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn. The Progressive Voices channel is the same. Excuse me, the Progressive Voices channel are the same folks that used to have Air America, where Rachel Maddow got her start. So yeah, I used to be a Democrat and even some would say a progressive. I graduated from Berkeley. What do you expect? But so anyway, But, you know, once you start seeing that there's no progress happening for Black Americans, despite the fact that we've been here 460 years, despite the fact that we've been voting Democrat for, no, yeah, we've been voting Democrat for 5 decades, and then you're not seeing any progress. And then you see they're leaning toward, and then when you start learning about immigration, which I did learn from Dr. Claude Anderson. And so Dr. Claude Anderson became my mentor on immigration. And he has all the data and all the accurate political history, which is rare. You don't find people who have data and accurate political history. Oh, wait, I think I'm supposed to turn this way. Okay. I don't know why I couldn't figure that out. I just...
It's okay, I won't tell anyone.
Was that, I mean, it's like, you know, anyway. So I actually turned the camera right for the YouTube live stream.
YouTube live stream.
Can you imagine? They were looking at...
You got a good look at your bag.
They were looking at a blank at my bag. But anyway, so what was I saying? Oh, so before we get to the articles that Ian wrote about immigration, he knows the information. He's well-versed. He knows, he studies it. I wanted to read a little bit of a memo. It's not a long, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read maybe 2 paragraphs of a memo that Dr. Claude Anderson wrote about how immigration harms Native, Blacks, and urban opportunity. Oh, wait, how immigration harms Black Americans. I'll leave it at that. And so I want to just read a couple of paragraphs so that you guys have a sense. Are you out there listening? Say yes. No?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this is written by Dr. Claude Anderson. It's a memo. It's a few pages. I'm just going to read a few paragraphs. Executing immigration policies without mitigating the negative impact that those policies might have on Black Americans is illegal and unconstitutional. The 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, enacted at the end of the 1860 Civil War, mandated that Black people be treated in all manners similar to whites. Since then, 6 succeeding generations of immigrants have been fast-tracked into full American Dream membership and benefits over Black Americans who remain the nation's official underclass. And this is, you know, isn't that interesting? You know, I just want to make this little side note right here, because you see the DACA folks, they call them dreamers because they deserve the American dream. Meanwhile, Black Americans are relegated to an underclass. You know that's true when we're 40% of the homeless in Los Angeles, right? So anyway, getting back, now this is the second paragraph. So the DACA folks are dreamers. You see, the American dream, MLK's I Had a Dream. What did the DACA folks do to become dreamers? Anyway, Black Americans remain an obsolete and abandoned labor class because the original mandates of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution have been ignored, violated, and corrupted. The 14th Amendment stipulated and mandated that all levels of government exercise all necessary means to lift the legacies and burdens off the shoulders of Black Americans. These constitutional amendments were the collective base for the 1866 civil rights laws designed to correct the 1857 Dred Scott decision that held that a Black man had no rights a white man was bound to respect. These laws were intended not for all people, but to specifically correct the systematic injustice imposed upon Black people. And when I say Black people, I'm not talking about Kamala Harris, am I? We're talking about the ones whose ancestors suffered. This is my side note. We're talking about the Black folks, the Black native Black Americans born in the United States whose ancestors were subjugated to slavery, Black codes, sunset laws, meritorious manumission, Jim Crow, illegal aliens, political correctness. Do you get it? So anyway, this is the last paragraph I'm going to go to, and then we're going to let Ian talk because I talk too much. And I mean, I could go on and on. Anyway, throughout this nation's history, there have been successive waves of immigrants that block the access of Native Blacks to or push them off of the upward mobility ladder of success. After slavery, over 100 million European immigrants displaced Blacks in every labor and professional occupation. Since slavery, Black displacement continues unabated. And then he talks about the areas. He goes into space, economics, unemployment. And, you know, it's a beautiful memo. It's a beautiful memo. And my job, I'm trying to get this memo to President Trump. It's a memo written by Dr. Claude Anderson. So anyway, now I'm going to bring Ian back into the conversation. So Ian, tell me, how did you get interested in the issue of immigration?
It's a long story. I was always concerned about illegal immigration, even going back to like when I was in middle school when George Bush was president. But I never was really at the forefront of my political concerns. I was more concerned about taxation and foreign policy, which I still am concerned about. But it wasn't until really when it started building up under the Obama administration, particularly with the DACA situation, that I really took interest in illegal aliens coming into the United States and illegal migration, not immigration, migration, because the term immigration means it is legal. So to use the phrase illegal immigration is literally oxymoronic.
Right. You know, and that's something that I've talked about last week, how the Democrats and the media, they have terms and words, and the American people embrace these terms and words, and these terms and words are not accurate. And an example is immigration. They say that illegal aliens are immigrants. They are not. Okay, go ahead.
And going into that, I come from Orange County, which is, you know, I love my home. And one area in particular that I like to cite is the city of Santa Ana, which over time has become nothing more than an extension of Mexico. It's an enclave where a large number of people, particularly the older generation, don't use English. They don't speak English, or if they do, it's very broken. I find myself running into a lot of people in that area that can't speak English at all, maybe a few words here and there. But my main concern over time, seeing this influx of Latin American immigration to the United States, is the development of these ethno-religious cultural enclaves and the gradual decay of a functioning society. How can you have a functioning society when you can't agree on the same morals, on the same ways to run that society, and even speak the same language? Society is going to decay and fall apart if you can't agree on having just the simple fundamentals.
American values.
Exactly.
And it starts with learn the language, English.
There must be a lingua franca, or a commonly spoken language, in every society for that nation or society to function. That's first and foremost. Equally important are shared values, which are rooted in religion, a shared heritage, shared history, which many of these people don't share or care about. They just, in many cases, not all, people come here for the economic opportunities, and that's it.
And they don't know our history. They don't know American history, and they don't know Black American history.
Not at all.
Which is one, you know, Black Americans, we're Americans.
To the core.
Yeah. And that, you know, I've talked about this before. It's like the reconciling between Black America and white America. It has been going on for 460 years. And every time we're getting ready to get there, and basically with the 1965 Civil Rights Act, we were on our way. But here comes the Immigration Act to just get us off course.
Yeah. And I think you saw with the Civil Rights Movement, an impact, or I guess a moment in American history where there was going to be some progress between white and Black Americans. We saw a glimmer of hope.
Right.
And then right a year afterwards, after the 64 Civil Rights Act, there was the 65 Immigration and Nationality Act, which allowed for the gradual huge influx of immigrants from all over the world to come into the United States and upset that progress that was just starting to happen between whites and Blacks, where if that law hadn't been passed, we would have seen that progress to gradually, come to being.
Take hold.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's so clear. Everyone who has a thinking cap on realizes this because we've gone backwards. How can a group of people be in a country 460 years and be 40% of one of the most liberal cities in the United States, Los Angeles, and be 40% of their homeless?
It's unacceptable.
It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And, I think Ann called, and how can you call, this is Obama. What did he do? He executed an order for DACA. And they get free college education. That's what Kamala Harris said this morning when she was announcing her run for the presidency in Oakland, which used to be for decades a black city, is now immigrants and liberals. This is crazy. And I know, like when you go to DC, the people that you see homeless living on the street are Black Americans, folks. You don't see immigrants sleeping on the street. You don't see illegal aliens sleeping on the street. They have Black folks' jobs, okay? That's just the bottom line, okay?
And we're not prioritizing our citizens. White American, Black Americans, and Native Americans who have been here since before America was even a nation.
Right.
We're prioritizing cheap, foreign, uneducated, unskilled labor because people they don't want to pay good, hardworking Americans a decent wage. Instead, they want to bring in foreign labor that will work under the table.
And it's a slap in the face to Americans that we call them dreamers. They came illegally with their parents, and we call them dreamers, and we give them free education.
As if we don't have dreams as Americans,
right?
White and Black Americans.
And and this is something that Trump talked about. And this is why I titled this show, President Trump, please listen to, no, I said, President Trump, listen to honest and knowledgeable Black Americans on immigration, and you'll get that wall. Because when you bring Black Americans in on this conversation, it changes everything. And you notice they don't have, you got your Black Democrats who have sold out Black Americans who are giving lip service to the Democratic Party. I mean, they're just shucking and jiving behind Nancy Pelosi like nobody's business. But you don't see Black Americans who sound like me or who sound like Dr. Claude Anderson or who even sound like Candace. We're not really out there enough or broadly or in front of President Trump. We need to get in front of President Trump because, we're going to lay down the gauntlet, so to speak. Is that the expression?
It is. It's a great expression.
Is that I'm gonna like lay it down. It's like, hello, I would get me in front of some of these folks, like Roland Martin and Angela Rye and Joanne Reed and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer, who started his career pushing out Black residents of Brooklyn. Get me in front of these folks. But I can't wait. But I don't know if I'll get in front of them. But anyway,
you should.
In my dreams, no, but in my dreams, I'm having a battle with Nancy Pelosi. But it will be a knockout punch because immediately I'm going to go straight to the jugular. You have destroyed Black America, and the epitome of racism, white supremacy is the destruction of Black America. Okay, I'll let you go and talk, Ian.
Well, firstly, you're 10 times more articulate than Nancy Pelosi, so I think you'd easily defeat her in debate.
Well, I don't have dentures. I don't have dentures.
Ooh. Yeah. Well, I guess going into one of my articles, the first one, which one did you have there? The Democratic Party is killing itself. That one was an interesting one. In fact, Real Clear Politics published that on their front page on July 4th. So I was pretty shocked to hear about that. And I got a lot of people agreed with it, and I got a lot of flack as well. So basically what I said in that article was over time, the Democratic Party is continually over time embracing this concept of multiculturalism and diversity, when in reality, it doesn't work at all in any sense. How can you have deeply rooted religious groups, deeply rooted ethno-religious, cultural, linguistic groups that have very different concepts of morality, very different concepts of how to run a society, throw them all together and assume they're all just going to get along and have kumbaya?
It goes against human nature.
And what I'm seeing, and I cited different countries that are running into this issue as well, is ultimately while the Democrats are enjoying these different groups voting for them at the time being, over time, they will turn against each other because they're not going to have those shared values. And over time, you're going to see the development of ethno-religious based political parties develop. And an example of that, there's a party in the Netherlands that has a couple seats in the Dutch House of Representatives called the Denk Party. They're a Turkish minority interest party that have direct ties with the government of Turkey. How is that acceptable in the Netherlands, in Europe?
Exactly.
They're acting on behalf of a foreign power within the government, within the parliament of another nation. You also have that in Malaysia, a Chinese minority interest party in Malaysia, acting on behalf of the Chinese groups that are the Chinese diaspora that are living in Malaysia, when they're not the native people of that nation, but they're demanding special rights. And you're going to see that over time, and there's going to be conflict.
It's well, you're already seeing it. When for instance, I want to say like Kamala Harris, she's for everything and everybody. That means you're for nothing.
Exactly.
So in other words, that means she said, I'm for white women, she said this in Oakland, LGBT, transgender, there's some other kind of trans stuff she said, I can't remember.
It's a new one every day.
Yeah, she's like for everyone. And these are conflicting interests. We're supposed to all be Americans. Period. And the reason why I talk about Black America is because I believe it's about Black America and white America, and then you can put Native Americans in there, and that's it. It's because it's hundreds of years of this, and these three groups reconciling, and we can do it. But instead, what happened is you pile on top of these three groups all these other groups, and they're fighting for their interest. So it becomes a complete and utter mess.
And it creates divided loyalties between the people that are living, people that are living here and the homeland of their ancestors.
And like you said about how, I see that here, how people, they don't even try to learn English. Pro English is a sponsor of the show. They don't even try to learn English. And, this is unacceptable that people, and this is something that Terry Anderson talked about in the 90s, that you have job advertisements that say, this is why we have so many. When you have so many, they change the dynamics, the fabric of a society. So many, we have 12 million, maybe even 20 million illegal aliens, if not more. And they all don't speak English. So it's like they are galvanized. Is that the term I'm using? Or it's like they're in their own area, and it's like they have an entitlement to ask for people who speak Spanish as a requirement to work at McDonald's. It's just become
in the borders of our own nation. And kind of going into, if we're good on time, going into my other article.
Right.
What America can learn from Japan's immigration system.
Right.
I spent a lot of time in Japan. I speak Japanese. My fiance is Japanese. And being there made me realize how strict they are about people that come to their country, how restrictive they are about immigrants coming in their country. On average, it takes about 15 years to get citizenship in Japan. And they don't allow for dual citizenship as well. They say you have to pick one. And all the documentation through the citizenship process is only in Japanese.
So you have to speak Japanese.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm speaking with Ian Henderson, who is a political consultant and an opinion writer. And he has two articles, or we're going to go over the third article. The Democratic Party is killing itself. It's on AmericanGreatness.com. And then What American Can Learn from Japan's Immigration System. That's on AmericanGreatness.com. And when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about his third article, Why Building the Wall is the Humane Thing to Do. So I'm with Ian Henderson. This is the Naked Truth Report. I'm your host, Kathleen Wells, and we'll be right back.
My wife said we gotta talk. She said I know I took it for better or worse. That was a mistake. I see you looking at much too much.
February 2nd. And Mike Alexander has the show right after me. And hi, Mike.
Hi, am I live? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're live.
All right, great.
Okay.
Yeah, Mike Alexander here. Thank you very much, Kathleen, for
You're
having me on. And by the way, for all of you who are listening, she's going to stay with me for the first 15 minutes or so of my show. So we thought we'd introduce each other to each other's audiences on this very, very important issue of school choice.
Right. So on February 2nd, you're going to be hosting a school choice summit. Talk to us about that.
School choice summit, you betcha. I don't think that this audience needs to be told too much about school choice. The question is, what is the program? School choice, quite simply, is the ability of parents to choose the schools that their children go to, give them their money, give them their kids, go educate them alone. The unique program that we are advocating here, excuse me, of school choice is the Educational Savings Account, ESA. Now, the key features of this initiative that we're going to be pursuing are, number one, that in the state of California, following the passage of this amendment to the California Constitution, an educational savings account will be created for each K through 12 student in the state of California. Into that account will be deposited each year the average state spending per pupil. And right now, that was over $17,000 ended up being allocated for 2018-19. $17,000. Don't believe any of this malarkey that you hear to the contrary about actual school spending. It was $17,000 that came down. That $17,000 can then be used by the parents to choose a school to put their children in a school of their choice, a public school, a charter school, or an accredited private or parochial school. Yes, you can send them to your church, school, synagogue, or whatever. Fourth feature of this program is really special, and that is the savings aspect of this. Anything that you don't spend on your children's education can be accumulated for college, saved for college, or used for other approved educational expenses. And that can be very important where you have children who need music, and maybe the music at this particular private school isn't up to snuff, love the academics and so forth. This puts parents in charge of their education. And this, believe me, everybody uses that expression, kryptonite, to the public employee unions. Well, this gives new meaning to the word kryptonite. This destroys the public school monopoly and restores and recognizes the parental monopoly that exists under God's law and natural law that grants the parents the right as well as the duty to oversee the education of their children. Those are key features. We're bringing people from public schools, Catholic schools, private schools. I don't care whether you believe or don't believe, you got to want to educate your own children. We're having that this coming Saturday in Pasadena. For details, go to schoolchoice2020.org. Again, schoolchoice2020, those are the numbers, 2020.org. There's a big register page right there. Go there right now, register, make sure you get a seat. And there's no cost for coming. And I'm secretly hoping that Kathleen Wells will be there.
Yeah, I signed up. I registered.
Oh, you did? Wonderful. Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can have you up in front, huh? And as if you were.
Yeah.
Bring some friends.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any children, so I don't have anyone in schools, but I understand this is an important issue. And I understand that the Los Angeles teachers went on strike recently. They're no longer on strike, and their issue was that the schools were overcrowded and they want smaller classrooms and they want more money. And I know that back in the 80s, Los Angeles built 164 new schools for the kids of illegal aliens. And so so I don't understand this kind of thinking. It's like we want more illegal aliens to come into this. We want at least this migrant caravan to come in, and it will probably come straight to Los Angeles, and we'll have to teach their kids.
Sure, it's cash flow.
It's like, but it's like a conundrum but the teachers are complaining about overcrowded schools. Right.
Well, to a certain extent, I always try to be a fair and honest broker in these situations. I don't want to be guilty of what they're guilty of, which is lying and distortion half the time. I'm speaking mostly of their unions and the special pleaders for the so-called teachers' unions. The fact is that population in the LAUSD school population has been declining. Birth rates are down. Many of the illegals are not necessarily coming here. More children are headed over to the charter schools. And so right now, 5 out of 6 children, or I should say only 5 out of 6 children of school age in LAUSD are in the system. The other 1/6 of those, what would otherwise be public school students, are in charter schools. They hate charter schools. So the major problem that the teachers have, whether it's with overcrowding or anything else, is just bad management. And it has to begin with the recognition that our public so-called school system is not a system of education. It is a system of indoctrination. It is more than anything else. It is a political entity which is organized. It is the so-called California Teachers Association is nothing more than the precinct workers and the activists for the one party that runs this state. And nobody opposes them. They're there to get out the vote. Now, when you look, you see the mischief that these unions are up to. And we'll cover this in more depth on the other side. When you look at that settlement had 6% more for the teachers. Now, you can complain that that's too much given the failure of the system, but leaving that argument aside, that was the offer that they had in early January and turned down as totally unacceptable. Well, when the smoke cleared, the lowlife signed the deal, right? And they approved that contract, taking 6%. But you get into it. There was important stuff for the unions in there. First of all, right at the top of the settlement was a hammer down on charter schools. They want those charter schools ended or unionized. They don't care which. Even though they didn't pay their teachers any more money, they agreed to hire another 150 nurses or something like that, another 41 librarians. In other words, when the teachers say that they're not getting enough money, you can agree or disagree, but the fact is that this system that admitted that it wasn't paying its teachers enough money went out and hired another 150, 250 people. And what does that represent, class? Union dues, right? So you give that teacher another 6%, your union dues don't go up by 6%. That's kind of a flat 1,000. But you bring in all those other people, then you're there. But of course, what do you really want to do? As your guest knows, these kids are headed up from Guatemala. It's no accident that they push the kids across first. It's not merely, ladies and gentlemen, not merely that they're more sympathetic, which they are. It's not merely that they make better human shields, which they do, but most important, they represent maximum cash flow to the public schools, to the union. So that kid is worth how much? We just went over it. Can we whip out your Obama phones and add up the numbers? All right. 17,000 in state spending. Add some welfare in. Add some school nurses in, add some Medi-Cal in, add AFDC for the parents, and all the other ancillary was. It's beautiful. It grows their business because they are in the government business, and we, ladies and gentlemen, have to take them back. We can't hope to take our country back unless we first take back our children, their hearts, their minds, and their souls.
Yeah, well, this is the ripple effect of illegal aliens. You know, when we had the government shutdown, partial government shutdown, they talked about the ripple effect of the shutdown, but they never talk about the ripple effect of illegal aliens. It impacts our schools, it impacts our housing, it impacts our jobs, it impacts our social service programs. So, I mean, what are the schools like in Orange County in the public school system?
Historically, they've been very good. The community being very affluent has been able to sustain the school systems there, and overwhelmingly, but they are little by little being adversely affected by this crisis with illegal immigration into our nation. So.
Mm-hmm. And the LA school, I think their graduation rate is like 51%, right?
Yeah, max. And that's by their own low standards, right? Do you know how low that is? I mean, all these teachers get together and rig the system.
Right.
So you'd have to have the IQ of a refrigerator handle, not to graduate from their schools because they rig it.
Right.
But I want to speak to the other point here, and this gets to, what was your name, sir?
Ian Henderson.
Yeah, Ian. I want to speak partially to Ian's point here. Fact is that as Californians with limited ability to affect the immigration system, we are stuck with millions of children who come here from other places or come from different traditions, second generation. We have to do a better job of educating them. If they are indeed here to stay, and that's a decision that's going to be made elsewhere, not by us here in this room, but if they indeed are here to stay, then we need to furnish them with the best education possible. We need to make sure that they can speak English. We need to make sure that they can participate fully in our economy and fully in our republic. That's not happening now. They're being kept isolated. They're being kept Mexican. They're being kept foreign or wherever the hell they came from. We don't have a plan for actually bringing them into the system, and to assimilate.
Yeah,
there's none of that going on.
None of it.
Yeah,
none of it. And Mexicans make great Americans. We know that. So if we're going to have people from other parts of the country under whatever provision, legal, illegal, or otherwise, once those kids get there, we have to have a plan. That's what we'll continue our discussion on.
Yeah, I hear the music. So I want to thank, that's Mike Alexander, who comes on right after me. And it's Radio Free. The program is
Radio Free Los Angeles.
Radio Free Los Angeles. And I just had Ian Henderson, who is a Democrat. Wow, can you imagine? That was the name of his... He is a political strategist and opinion writer. His articles can be found on AmericanGreatness.com. Thank you, Ian. I'm going to have you on again because we have so much in common. You know what I mean?
Sounds
we both
good.
went to UCLA.
Happy to be here.
Right. It was fun. So listen, folks, be sure to attend this summit, school summit, February 2nd in Pasadena at...
go to schoolchoice2020.org, schoolchoice2020.org, register free there.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to be on for a bit in your show, Mike, and we'll see you later, Ian. Thank you very much. And this is the Naked Truth Report. I'm your host, Kathleen Wells, and I'll see you next week. Thanks. Or I'll see you on Mike's show.
All right.
Bye.